Hello, welcome to the digital sideboard here on the SCG Tour online. I'm Nick Miller alongside championship qualifier number 4 champion Autumn Burchett. You've won a lot of things. You didn't get to play on the SCG Tour a lot when we were on tabletop, but it didn't take you long from online events to take one down. A runner-up finish, in the first one, and you've capped it all off ending the season here. Well, ending the season with the championship qualifiers. We got the big one tomorrow, but how's it feel? You've had an average finish of, I would say, like 6 or 7, I think, when you add your 4 finishes together here in these 4 events.
Yeah, I think I worked it out. My win percentage before this event was like high 70s. So I can't. It's pretty unreal, honestly.
Yeah, a first place, a second place, top 16, top 32, pretty good in 4 events.
Like ever since these online events started, I was having like a little bit of a cold streak and struggling with them, I guess. And then these came along, and I've been like a bit of a better headspace recently, being able to focus more. Got a bit more used to just competing in online events, I guess, which has helped a lot. Just that extra bit of comfort.
Yeah, I would imagine there has to be some sort of difference, and you have to find a way to get into the competitive spirit from your own room or from your own home, as opposed to being in a convention center. How's that been for you over these past 4 events? Seems like you've been pretty dialed in.
Yeah, I have been pretty dialed in. Definitely towards the end of the events. Not so much today. Today I feel like I was focusing the entire time. There were a couple events where towards the end, in like round 6 or 7, you could feel the fatigue setting in. Especially, I've been streaming all 4 of these.
Yeah.
And I have when I'm playing the matches, I have my chat in emote only mode, and I'm not looking at chat. So like, I'm not having to interact with people, but I'm still just explaining everything. And I'm still like in between matches, instead of going and like lying down for 20 minutes or something, I'm like trying to interact with people or watch coverage together or something. So it's intense. But I've definitely, after a rough little start, I've definitely gotten a bit more used to getting in that competitive mindset.
Tell us about
nice.
your teamer reclamation list here. You've been running this list or close to this list in all 4 events. I know after Aaron Diaz won the second event, y'all started working together and both tuned this list for today, right?
Yeah. I can't remember if it was the second or third event. I think it was the second event. I got paired against Aaron, and we played our match. I actually didn't know that he top 8'd the previous one, but I was pretty impressed by his play when we were playing the match, and thought his list was sweet. So I was just like, in the MTG Ballet client, it's great because you can message your opponents really easily. So I was just like, oh hey, nice games. That was pretty sweet. And he's like, yeah, I hope you make top 8. And then we got talking a bit, and then he mentioned that he like tests a bunch of canister. I was like, okay. So I was already suspecting you were really good. And then you mentioned that you like work with canister, and that's like kind of a sign that like maybe this is someone to look out for. And I was like, do you want to just start testing together soon? And this last week and a bit, we've had like 3 or so evenings where we've jammed games against each other just to get in practice and figure out things about lists. I've expressed my like some personal preferences on little things. I really loved Commence the Endgame and convinced him how good that card is. And I wasn't really that keen on the Jor-El's. And this list I played today is his 75 that he made after like playing a bunch of games against me in canister and talking things out. And I was like, this morning I was like tempted to change a couple little details, and I was like, I just couldn't quite convince myself to. I was like, this actually just seems really solid. I can't really think of any details I'd actually want to change. Your like sideboard plans are really coherent and make a lot of sense. So I'm just going to run with it and hope it works out. And clearly it did.
It looks particularly tuned for fighting the growth spiral matchups, which anyone that looked at the top 16, top 20 lists here knows that's basically most of what the tournament was. Your finals matchup, though, Brandon Burton, Sandy Dog, mono red, number 1 seed.
Yeah.
had defeated you in round 7, playing for the undefeated mark, was taking down all kinds of people on Team Iraq. But your matchup there in the finals looked pretty good. You drew a lot of Ether Gust, a lot of Brazen Borrowers, and seemed to, when you draw those pieces, it seems like this deck can beat anything.
Yeah. Obviously, game 1, you have to hope your opponent's draw on the aggro decks is a bit slow, and that you have like a growth spiral start. But then post board, you have so much spot removal with the Ether Gusts, and then like the petty thefts just to buy time. And sure, you're giving the flying body on the borrower is not very good in the matchup. It just like, doesn't really. But by the time you're casting it, the game's over. But something that Aaron convinced me of for a long time, I was just like, okay, I don't want to be spending 1 in a blue to answer your thing for a turn, and then have this flyer that's just irrelevant. It just felt like I was just like, I wouldn't necessarily think to board in like unsummon or whatever in the matchup. But Aaron just like convinced me after talking to me about it that like when you're drawing this many cards off your explosion, and when like just getting an Uro in play ends the game half the time, it doesn't matter that you're throwing away cards like this. It's actually fine just to cast this petty theft, not really care about the borrower half, but buy yourself that turn to get to your big haymaker plays. So I've been really happy with it. It's like not a conclusion I would have come to myself, and not something I'd really tried out before, but now that I'm actually doing it, it feels really coherent and powerful.
You were already qualified for the seasonal championship that's happening tomorrow, but a win was a nice lead into it. Would you change anything with your list for people who are preparing for the event tomorrow? I have to imagine you feel pretty happy with what you have here.
I am extremely happy with this list. It's more likely than not that I'm just running back the same 75, and like obviously most people who win tournaments are gonna feel like that because you have to like run well and stuff. But I've been very happy with basically every detail about it. Even the ones I was like a little bit skeptical entering the event just overperformed. The single Nissa, I faced Rakdos Sacrifice in like round 2 or 3. And if that Nissa was a reclamation, I think I would have just got run over. But the fact it was a Nissa meant I could land my Nissa, use a petty theft to buy a bit of time, and then just turn the corner so fast. I just like, next turn I'm attacking for like 6 at my opponent, and their Regisaur is back in their hands, so they don't even have like good blocks on my creatures, and suddenly my Nissa's already well defended and the game just ends in like 3 turns. Whereas like a reclamation, sometimes you need all the pieces cobbled together in the right order for it to do what you want. So
Right. What do you expect the field to be like tomorrow? Do you expect it to be very similar today, or do you think people who've, done the work and qualified for this event might be a little ahead of the curve, or switching decks, or angling a little more to beat Team Iraq in specific? And does it even matter if they are?
I expect that we're still going to see a little bit of diversity in the metagame, but there's definitely going to be more rec than there was today. I would be very surprised if that's not the case, especially with like the results it put up today, which were pretty unreasonable.
Yeah.
I think like a reasonable call to try and beat it. The band decks are like in a weird position, right? Because like the whole time up until now, you just like couldn't respect Team Iraq with your ban list because there's all these mono green players running around that like just demand very different things of you, and you just like can't put a punch of counter magic in your main deck. So it's possible we see some more of that potentially if people just think there's not going to be any more mono green, but it's kind of like a gamble to take because then if you do get paired against mono green or whatever, you're going to get run over.
All right. Well, we've had 4 championship qualifiers, 2-1 by Team Iraq, 2-1 by Bant, I believe. So those decks do look to be pretty well positioned. Obviously, you're going to probably hope that a Team Iraq deck wins tomorrow in the hands of yourself. But I think we're going to have an interesting tournament tomorrow. It's going to be our first championship qualifier. We just announced we're going to have season 2. So anyone who watches today or tomorrow, be sure to get involved, start playing for season 2. Ton of money up for grabs tomorrow. Autumn, congratulations on your championship today. We will be seeing you tomorrow, I'm sure, in the feature match area for the seasonal championship. For all the commentators today, for all the directors, thank you. For all the viewers, thank you. Stay tuned tomorrow. We've got seasonal championship coming forward.
The rares double the fun. Pre-order your Double Masters products now on StarCityGames.com.